Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of Streaming Charts with Dan. We actually have a lot to get to. In addition to the actual streaming charts themselves, we're going to talk about Paramount Plus. We're going to talk about Disney Plus and some hot water they've gotten themselves into regarding the credits for their newest series. But we are going to start the show with a bunch of news involving Warner Brothers Discovery. They've been in the headlines for months now because of their cost-cutting measures, canceling movies, pulling things off of their streaming service, rebranding their streaming service, and it was a combination of things that hit the headlines this week, in addition to their difficulties at the box office with The Flash. And let's start with Turner Classic Movies. If you don't know what Turner Classic Movies is, it was a cable channel that was launched back in 1994, and it's known for presenting classic Hollywood films commercial-free, with hosted introductions from film experts, including one Alicia Malone, who's one of the best film minds that I've ever had the pleasure to meet, and it's so great to see her living her dream over at Turner Classic Movies. In a time before streaming, Turner Classic Movies was one of the only places that you could find classic Hollywood films or find Hollywood films that were presented in the letterbox format back when you had to go rent things on VHS and everything was pan and scan. They have had a devotion to film preservation that has been so admirable over the decades. And that's why people really got up in arms when news came out this past week that substantial cutbacks would be hitting the division as part of an overall move to reduce the costs and size of the Warner Brothers Discovery Cable Group. Longtime chairman of Turner Classic Movies, Paula Shagnon, who had been with the channel for over 2 decades, was part of the group departing, which also included the channel's lead programmer, the head of the annual Turner Classic Movies Film Festival, as well as high-level positions in both the marketing and executive divisions of the company. Now, David Zaslav himself has publicly professed to be a huge fan of classic cinema and Turner Classic Movies, but that didn't stop a trio of directors, Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, and Paul Thomas Anderson, from personally intervening or contacting Zaslav in order to advocate for the preservation of Turner Classic Movies and the channel. And it seems that some immediate changes came out of this outcry. Instead of handing the division over to executive Michael Ullin, who oversees several other networks, including Adult Swim and Discovery Family, Turner Classic Movies instead is going to be under the leadership of Michael DeLuca and Pamela Abdy, who are the co-heads of Warner Brothers Pictures. Their role is being described as sort of a creative guiding role, a strategic role, and then the finances and everything will be administrated elsewhere. And it seems like this move was meant to sort of show that David Zaslav and Warner Brothers Discovery were serious about Turner Classic Movies. We're going to have the heads of the studio overseeing it. But what does that really mean? Because according to a report in The Wrap, the staff over at TCM is set to be cut to 20 people from about 90 people, with budgets also cut. So even if the channel remains intact, technically its operations will be severely impacted. And this is not the first time that Warner as a company has cut funding to a division of the company that classic film lovers advocate for. Back in 2018, they pulled the plug on the streaming service Filmstruck after just 2 years in operation during the last acquisition, back when it was restructuring under AT&T into Warner Media. That led to the creation of the Criterion Channel streaming service, but that was also met with outcry from classic film fans saying that Filmstruck was a place for the preservation of film, and under that leadership, it didn't really make much of a difference. Now, it doesn't seem like that's imminent for the US version of Turner Classic Movies. I think versions of the service in other countries have been affected. But the question remains, how long is that really going to last? While it's still around, it's going to be hard for TCM to operate the way that it has done and do things like their Classic Film Festival at the scale that they've done it before. And really, the whole enterprise is there through the grace of David Zaslav. And all you really need to do is ask some of the other creatives recently that have done stuff over at Warner Brothers Discovery to see just how far that grace really takes you. So Turner Classic Movies, safe for now, but the budget's severely cut and questions about the future of the whole division. So that's one thing that made news this week. Another story that I think was largely kind of misunderstood online was the continuing coverage of Warner Brothers Discovery's attempt to sell some of their music publishing rights for their film and TV projects. It was first reported back in January that Warner Brothers Discovery was looking to unload its entire film and TV music library, but those plans reportedly fell through back in the spring. Now it seems they may be looking to sell off some of those rights for a lower figure, around $500 million, as it looks to pay down tens of billions of dollars in debt. Now, it hasn't been reported exactly which music rights could be up for sale, but when you look at the Warner Brothers TV and film library, they control the music rights for things like the Batman films and Purple Rain, and Casablanca, meaning that they could potentially sell away the rights to the song As Time Goes By, which has become the signature song for the studio. You'd have to think any deal wouldn't include that song, right? Now, many people on social media misread this story and thought that it meant that WB was trying to sell half of their film library, meaning the rights to so many different characters. That's not what it is. It's just the music in these movies and TV shows. But this is part of the legacy of the studio, a studio that's celebrating 100 years, and yet here we see a potential dismantling of part of that legacy, again, in order to make some money to pay down debt. Then there's perhaps the biggest streaming deal we've seen so far between two rival companies, because it was also reported this week that there's a potential licensing deal in the works between Max and its biggest competitor in the streaming space, Netflix. Deadline broke the news that a potential deal is in the works to send HBO library titles, starting with Issa Rae's show Insecure, to Netflix on a non-exclusive basis, meaning that they would be licensed to Netflix but still available to stream on Max as well. Ironically, one of the reasons that Netflix became such a streaming giant was because they held the license to so many different shows and movies, including some of Warner's library, until those deals expired. And what we're seeing here is the continued fallout of pumping tens of billions of dollars into streaming, as well as the cost of combining these two companies. Warner Brothers Discovery is hemorrhaging money. They have over $40 billion in debt, and they're trying to alleviate that in every way possible. And all of this news is kind of a microcosm of the ways that these big corporations try to do that. They're dismantling legacy divisions and cutting costs there. They're selling off the rights to these things that make up the fabric of the history of the studio. And they're also looking to license shows, some of their shows, to other platforms in order to make income that way. That's basically all the ways that you can try to raise capital. And really, that's what we know about David Zaslav and this version of Warner Brothers Discovery. It's not whether the decisions are good for the creative or intellectual side of the company. It is all about the bottom line. And ideology, tradition, maintaining relationships with artists, that all comes second to being able to show on the balance sheet that your debt is decreasing. But let's say he achieves what he's trying to do and they pay down all of this debt. How much of the studio and its legacy is going to be left? How many artists and people are going to want to work with that studio? How many of the rights to their previous works will they still have? That is a big question. So yes, on a business side, people may say that Warner Brothers Discovery is making steps forward as far as paying down this debt, but I think this could be one of the most critical times in the history of the Warner Brothers studio. The question is, how many people that are currently in charge really even care about that? Warner Brothers Discovery and Max weren't the only streamers in the news this past week. Paramount Plus, which is a streamer that we've talked about on this show before, also made headlines after it announced its most extreme move yet in removing shows from the platform in order to take a tax write-off. 4 series were canceled this week that will also be removed from Paramount Plus in the near future with an attempt to license those shows elsewhere. Grease: Rise of the Pink Ladies, which premiered in April and just wrapped up its season earlier this month, was canceled and will be gone from Paramount Plus soon. Series creator Annabelle Oakes said in a social media post that the show will be gone next week and that, quote, "unless it finds a new home, you will no longer be able to watch it anywhere. My cast, my creative partners, and I are all devastated at the complete erasure of our show." The revival of the comedy series The Game was also canceled and will be removed from Paramount Plus, though the original series will stay on the platform. The series ran on UPN, the CW, and BET from 2006 to 2015. The revival lasted 2 seasons and wrapped in February. Queen of the Universe, a drag singing competition hosted by Graham Norton, wrapped its 2nd season this week, and the final episodes will only be on Paramount Plus for a matter of days. But the biggest announcement Paramount made by far was the announcement that Star Trek Prodigy would be canceled, that season 1 would be taken off of Paramount Plus, and that there was a hope to license the series to other streamers or platforms, but not just season 1. There's also a season 2 that is currently in production if Star Trek Prodigy finds a platform or finds a partner that will license the show, then season 2 will stream on that platform. If Star Trek Prodigy doesn't find a partner, then I guess the question is, will season 2 ever see the light of day? It's been said that production will continue and will be finished on this season 2, but as to when and where you'll see it, we don't quite know. It was supposed to be on Paramount Plus this fall. Those plans have now been canceled. And if Star Trek Prodigy is licensed somewhere else, and I think it's likely that it will be, then one of their big claims to fame over on Paramount Plus, which is that their platform is the home of Star Trek, will now not have the entirety of Star Trek because Prodigy will be living over here now. I covered what I think is a pretty dire situation at Paramount Plus on another episode of Streaming Charts, and there was an analyst that I talked about in that very episode who put out his own statement about Paramount this week. Stephen Cahall, who's been ringing the alarm bells about the studio for a while now, wrote this week that he gives the studio just 1 to 2 more years of staying on its current course before it will be forced to break up and basically sell itself off piece by piece. This is the beginning of the end game of the streaming wars, and I think it's coming quicker than anybody anticipated. This is the inevitable result of all of these companies leveraging themselves so heavily and racking up these billions of dollars in debts in order to become the next big thing, in order to become the Netflix killer. Even Disney Plus, who you could say is easily the most successful of the new streaming platforms, is pulling stuff off of their platform in order to save costs, and Netflix is cutting corners because they had to spend so much in order to stay number one or stay near the top when it comes to all of these different streaming platforms. And as all of these things develop, what is the media landscape looking like? Well, we see a film world where grosses are driven largely by theatrical distribution, and on the TV side, we're seeing studios that will develop some of their own projects and then license out some of their other projects to other platforms. In other words, the exact same financial model that had been in place for decades before any of this started. It seems like we're coming nearly full circle, except that some of Hollywood's most historic, influential, and treasured studios may have inflicted wounds upon themselves that they can't recover from. I honestly didn't think that we would get to this point for 3 or 4 more years, but things are escalating very quickly, and all we can do, ironically, is grab our popcorn and watch from the front row. So before we get to the streaming charts, there's one last story I wanted to talk about, and it concerns Disney Plus, although not this time taking any content off of the platform. It's about a new show that premiered on the platform this past week, and that is Marvel's Secret Invasion. There was a big hubbub on the internet and on social media after it was revealed that the opening credits of Secret Invasion were generated using AI, or artificial intelligence. And in looking into the story and researching it, I found that it seems like a lot of the reaction to it is very polarized. Shocking, I know, into either condemning this outright or basically saying that anybody who has a problem with it is stupid. And I think that a lot of this backlash has been driven by a misunderstanding or a false assumption that Marvel totally bypassed the usual way that they create stuff for their shows, which is to hire a company to make it, and instead just typed some words into AI and took what was spit out. That's not what happened. The titles for Secret Invasion were made by a company called Method Studios. They are one of the foremost visual effects companies in Hollywood. I worked for a place called Company 3 for a couple of years. They basically pioneered the art of digital color grading. I worked in the commercial side of it. There was the film side of it. We worked with Method Studios very closely. They were basically a sister company, and I can tell you that the volume of things that they have worked on over the years is massive. Huge movies, big commercials. They're not a small boutique agency. The director and producer of Secret Invasion, Ali Salem, described the process of doing the credits to Polygon, saying, quote, "We would talk to them," meaning Method, "about ideas and themes and words, and then the computer would go off and do something, and then we could change it a little bit by using words, and it would change." So this was a collaborative process between the studio and the creative design team at Method, in many ways similar to what you would get with a traditional credit sequence. Now, of course, the difference is that yes, these images were generated by AI under the creative direction of people at Method and Marvel. And after the show premiered and the word of this began to circulate and the backlash started, Method Studios released its own statement to the Hollywood Reporter saying, in part, quote, "Working on Secret Invasion, a captivating show exploring the infiltration of aliens into human society, provided an exceptional opportunity to delve into the intriguing realm of AI, specifically for creating unique character attributes and movements. Utilizing a custom AI tool for this particular element perfectly aligned with the project's overall theme and the desired aesthetic. The production process was highly collaborative and iterative, with a dedicated focus on this specific application of an AI toolset. It involved a tremendous effort by talented art directors, animators proficient in both 2D and 3D, artists and developers who employed conventional techniques to craft all the other aspects of the project. However, it is crucial to emphasize that while the AI component provided optimal results, AI is just one tool among the array of tool sets our artists used. No artist jobs were replaced by incorporating these new tools. Instead, they complemented and assisted our creative teams." So here we seem to have a bit of a quandary. On one hand, we have the very real threat of AI coming in and replacing creatives. On the other hand, though, we have the practical aesthetic applications of AI and the question about, if a creative and a design team, like we saw here, decide that that's the look they want to go for, will they forever be subject to the backlash that we've seen? Does the bad outweigh the good? Now, my personal take is that if this application of AI was used aesthetically and that it did not actually replace a human artist who would have worked on the show anyway, and also if they can prove that the art that was generated doesn't pull from other artists without attribution or compensation, then in this specific case, I'm okay with a studio and a design firm exploring what the possibilities of AI design can bring them. For people that don't like the way that the credits look, they just don't like the images that AI spits out, that's perfectly valid, but that's one thing. There's a difference between disapproving of the look and disapproving of the technology's application at all. This reminds me a little bit of the making of Jurassic Park, because that movie basically was the intersection between old school practical effects and the new digital era. But when you look at some of the stop motion animators who were going to do stuff on the project and then digital effects came in and proved that they were to the level where they needed to be, they didn't dig their heels in the sand. They actually worked hand in hand with the new digital effects artists to lend their expertise on how things can move, what motion is like, how you can program the computers to give a dinosaur realistic motion. And from that collaboration, we got the groundbreaking digital effects in Jurassic Park, which just celebrated its 30th anniversary. This was a case of two technologies meeting each other and professionals who knew both of these technologies working together to make something new. And I think that this was the goal here with Method Studios, to basically say, well, let's marry this new AI technology with the traditional work that artists do and see what comes out. But also there is, yes, this existential threat when it comes to artificial intelligence. That's a big reason of why writers are on strike. And I want to make it very clear, I do not support unlimited use of AI. I think that it should be used as a tool, as something that a group of creators can choose to work with if it enhances the work that's already being done, but it shouldn't be used to replace anybody. And that's the big fear, and that's what a lot of people saw when they heard of the credits being generated by AI, that Disney and Marvel just said screw those artists, we're just gonna type some words in and these are gonna be our Secret Invasion credits. That's not exactly what happened. So in this specific instance, I know there's a knee-jerk reaction, and there even was on my part, to hear that a studio's using AI and kind of, point your fingers at them like the end of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. In this specific instance, I do think a lot of the criticisms for Disney and Marvel are a little harsh and perhaps a little bit unfair. I think if there's an establishment of a hardline system where the standard is that no use of AI is ever acceptable at any time, anywhere, then you are denying a little bit the advancement of the technology. But if there is an encouragement under strict contractual regulation, which again is what the writers are largely striking for, to use AI when and where creatives deem that it will help them and actually make their jobs easier or give things a new dimension, then I think it's worth exploring. Because when you draw a hard line one way or the other, then I think you run the very real risk of getting left behind, which really isn't good for anybody. Okay, so those are the big streaming stories of the week, or if you just skipped ahead to the charts, that's fine too. I've always said with this show, I will always put the news up front. The charts will always be in the back. So if you don't care about the news stuff, then welcome to the show. And let's look at the streaming charts for the last couple weeks since our last episode. Let's start with what people are watching, renting, and buying over on the iTunes store. At number one is the Super Mario Bros. Movie, which is currently only available for purchase, but still number one. Universal and Illumination continue to make a lot of money from that film. John Wick Chapter 4, now available for purchase and rentals there at number 2, followed by Guy Ritchie's The Covenant at number 3. Fast X is now available for purchase and premium video on demand. It's at number 4. Indiana Jones, the 4-movie collection, which is basically all 4 movies for $20, is at number 5 as we lead into the release of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, currently only available for pre-order, but it's there at number 6. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is at number 7. The Machine, available for purchase and premium video on demand, is at number 8. Kandahar is at number 9, available for purchase and premium video on demand. And at number 10, available for purchase and rental, is this year's Blackberry. Moving over to Netflix, we have some big news to discuss with Netflix, but that concerns the second week's chart that we're going to look at. Let's look first at the week of June 5th through the 11th, and this is using what I call my global Murrell metric. I basically take the number of hours watched that Netflix reports, divide it by the show's runtime, and that gives me a number that I call the PFV, or potential finished view number. It's the way that I've been reporting Netflix numbers for some number of months now. And let's look at this week of June 5th through the 11th. At number 1 was Never Have I Ever Season 4 with a PFV of 15.78, meaning 15.78 million Netflix users could potentially have finished viewing it. At number 2 is the Netflix original movie A Beautiful Life, followed by the Netflix series Fake Profile. At number 4 is the Arnold Schwarzenegger docu-series Arnold with a PFV of 7.76. At number 5 is the 2007 Shooter, starring Mark Wahlberg and directed by Antoine Fuqua. At number 6 is the Arnold Schwarzenegger original Netflix series Fubar. Manifest Season 4, which has transitioned over to Netflix, is at number 7 with a PFV of 5.58. Followed by the Netflix movie You Do You, which is a Turkish comedy. The one thing about Netflix, it gets world cinema out to the masses. At number 9, Denis Villeneuve's Prisoners returns to the chart. And at number 10 is the 2011 Taylor Lautner movie Abduction, directed by John Singleton. So that takes care of the first week. Now, the second week is a little different because Netflix announced just this past week, going forward, that they will be reporting their numbers differently. Rather than just giving us the raw number of hours watched, Netflix will now be reporting their ratings by giving us the total hours watched divided by the runtime, which they now use to generate what they call the number of views. Basically, this is the exact same system that I've been using for many months now as the global Murrell metric. Now, I don't think that Netflix in any way stole this from me. I think it is funny, though, and it actually kind of validates me a bit in my own mind that Netflix is coming around and realizing that the most effective way to report how many people are watching their shows is to do it this way, because raw hours viewed doesn't really tell you as much as doing it the way that they're now doing it, and that's why I've spent so much time doing these calculations. So I will now be reporting this as the most viewed shows on Netflix using the numbers that they report. I did find, however, that their rounding was a little broad when they were reporting the actual number of views. So I still am doing my calculations. So let's look at the most viewed programs on Netflix for the week of June 12th through June 18th. At number 1 was Extraction 2. Netflix reported 42.91 million views based on the hours watched. Never Have I Ever at number 2 with 11.49 million views. Then Season 6 of Black Mirror with 11.29 million views. And the original Extraction with 9.59 million views. Followed by the Netflix movie You Do You. Season 1 of Bloodhounds on Netflix, which is yet another collaboration between Netflix and South Korea. 8.11 million views for that show. Returning to the charts is Paw Patrol the movie with 6.57 million views, followed by Black Clover, Sword of the Wizard King, an original anime film that premiered theatrically in Japan and simultaneously on Netflix worldwide. 6.38 million views recorded for that film. At number 9 is Fake Profile Season 1, and at number 10 is the docuseries Arnold. Let's look now at the most watched programs on Netflix for the calendar year to date, 2023. At number 1 is The Mother with 124.65 million views, followed by Murder Mystery 2 with 103.82 million views. The Night Agent Season 1 is at number 3 with 95.53 million views, followed by Luther the Fallen Son at number 4 and You People at number 5. Queen Charlotte moves up to number 6 with 73.85 million views, bumping the Netflix original movie Your Place or Mine down to number 7 with 72.88 million views. Ginny and Georgia Season 2 is at number 8. Wednesday Season at 1 spills over to number 9, and AKA is at number 10. Now, one of the advantages to this new reporting from Netflix is that I have more data than I had before, because Netflix also altered the window as far as how much data they're tracking, from the first 30 days that a show or movie was streaming on the platform to the first 90 days that a show or movie was streaming on the platform. They also have more data going back a little further than I had. So I'm also adjusting the most watched, I say of all time, but it's really not of all time. These are the most watched programs, movies, series, etc. since Netflix began reporting this data back in June of 2021. So let's start now with the most viewed Netflix programs from June 28th, 2021 to present. Again, this is watch time in the first 90 days. The most watched Netflix program is Squid Game at 2.2 billion hours watched and a total estimated number of views at 265.14 million. Right behind is Wednesday Season 1 with 252.13 million views, followed by the Netflix original movie Red Notice at 230.91 million views. Then Don't Look Up at 170.75 million. The Adam Project rounds out the top 5 at 157.6 million, followed by Bird Box, a new entry here, at 157.38 million. Stranger Things 4 is at number 7 at just over 140 million. Right behind that is The Gray Man at 139.3 million. Then We Can Be Heroes at 137.37 million, and Glass Onion at 136.3 million. Now, Netflix is reporting these numbers for English language films as well as non-English language films, as well as English language series and non-English language series. So in addition to the most watched programs of all time, I'll also be tracking the most watched movies and most watched series on Netflix since 2021. And looking at the most watched films, Red Notice is at number 1, Don't Look Up is at number 2, The Adam Project is at number 3, Bird Box is at number 4, and The Gray Man is at number 5. We Can Be Heroes is at number 6, and Glass Onion is at number 7. All of those movies were on the most watched programs list. Then at number 8 is Extraction, which looks to surpass Glass Onion's number of views. It currently is at 135.69 million views. If it continues to rack up views in conjunction with Extraction 2, then it should take that number 7 spot. Spencer Confidential is at number 9 with 129.14 million views, and then Purple Hearts is at number 10 with 127.27 million views. And looking at the most watched Netflix series since June of 2021, Squid Game Season 1 is at number 1, Wednesday Season 1 is at number 2, and Stranger Things 4 is at number 3. Then we have Dahmer Monster at number 4 with 115.63 million views, followed by Bridgerton Season 1 at 113.33 million, The Queen's Gambit at 112.8 million, Money Heist Part 4 at 106 million, Lupin Part 1 at number 8 with 99.5 million views, then Money Heist Part 5 at 99.16 million views, and The Night Agent Season 1 from this year at 98.22 million views. So that is the rundown on how we're going to be reporting numbers on Netflix from now on. I'm very happy because it does sort of streamline my process, and I'm also kind of happy because I think generally providing more accurate data as far as the number of views something is getting works for the consumer as well, and perhaps this will work for the writers on strike. This is the kind of thing they've been asking for, more transparency when it comes to things like this. Let's look now at the top 10 most watched programs on Amazon Prime Video. At number 1 is the series Jury Duty, which is proving to be a breakout hit, followed by the docuseries Shiny Happy People. Creed 3 debuts on the chart at number 3. At number 4 is the Netflix original series Deadlock. It's a weekly series out of Australia about a murder mystery in Tasmania. At number 5 is the film My Fault, which is a film out of Spain based on a Wattpad story about the forbidden romance between two step-siblings. At number 6 is I'm a Virgo, a new original series from creator-director Booch Riley, who directed one of my favorite films in recent years, Sorry to Bother You. All episodes are now streaming. At number 7 is The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which just wrapped up its series. At number 8, probably due to unfortunate world events, is the film Titanic. Of course, many people around the country and the world captivated and ultimately saddened by the story of the submersible that was lost this past week, trying to dive down to the wreck of the Titanic. At number 9 is The Summer I Turned Pretty. Now, the first season of the series came out last year. It's from Jenny Han, who wrote the Summer I Turned Pretty novels, as well as the To All the Boys books. Season 2 doesn't come out until next month, but I guess people are catching up on season 1 in anticipation of that second season premiere. And at number 10 is the Netflix original series Jack Ryan, which is also wrapping up its run after 4 seasons. Let's take a look now at the Nielsen ratings, which as always are delayed by about a month, and we'll look first at the week of May 15th through the 21st. These were the 10 most watched streaming movies. At number 1 was The Mother, which continued its run with 19.3 million hours watched, followed by Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania debuting on Disney Plus to 12.76 million hours watched. Then A Man Called Otto on Netflix with 10.3 million hours watched. Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves debuted on Paramount Plus at number 4 with 8.2 million hours watched, followed by Ted on Netflix with 7.3 million hours, then Air on Amazon Prime Video. The docufilm Anna Nicole Smith: You Don't Know Me is at number 7 with 4.5 million hours watched, followed by Que Viva Mexico at number 8, The Croods at number 9, and Ugly Dolls making the debut on Netflix at number 10 with 3.8 million hours watched. At the top of the most watched streaming shows list for May 15th through the 21st was the Bridgerton spinoff Queen Charlotte with 17.6 million hours watched, followed by NCIS streaming on Netflix and Paramount Plus with 14.3 million hours watched. Ted Lasso continues to impress in its maybe final season on Apple TV Plus with 12.8 million hours watched, followed by Bluey on Disney Plus and Cocomelon on Netflix. SWAT debuts on the chart streaming on various different platforms with 10.5 million hours watched, followed by Queer Eye on Netflix and Succession on HBO Max, making the overall top 10 with 9.1 million hours watched as it approached its series finale. The Big Bang Theory is at number 9, and Rick and Morty on HBO Max and Hulu is at number 10. Looking at the watch time per available episode for May 15th to the 21st, Queen Charlotte logged 2.93 million hours watched per available episode, which would be 6 episodes, followed by Netflix's Missing Dead or Alive with 1.73 million hours watched per episode, and then XO Kitty with 606,000 hours watched per episode. Then we have Cocomelon at number 4, Bridgerton at number 5, the original series that Queen Charlotte spun off from, so a rising tide floats all boats there. Ted Lasso's at number 6 with 400,000 hours watched per episode, followed by Sweet Tooth at number 7, Firefly Lane at number 8, Succession at number 9, and The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel at number 10. Moving now to the week of May 22nd through the 28th, this was the week that HBO Max shifted to Max, so you will see it listed as such on these charts from now on. Missing was the number 1 streamed movie in the US for this week, 10.4 million hours watched, and again, a byproduct of Sony's licensing deal with Netflix. At number 2 was The Mother with 7.7 million hours watched, followed by Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania at number 3, Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves at number 4, and A Man Called Otto at number 5. Shazam! Fury of the Gods debuts at number 6, 5.76 million hours watched, so not even really a huge debut on streaming, as it was not a huge debut at the box office. The Sun on Netflix debuts at number 7 with 5.26 million hours watched, followed by Air on Amazon Prime Video, The Boss Baby on Netflix, and then Ted also on Netflix. Looking at the most watched streaming shows from May 22nd to the 28th, Netflix's debut of Fubar takes the number 1 spot with 25.56 million hours watched, followed by SWAT, which got a big boost at 22.5 million hours watched. All American on Netflix is at number 3 with 14.8 million hours watched, followed by NCIS and Ted Lasso at numbers 4 and 5. Cocomelon comes in at number 6, Bluey comes in at number 7, and Queen Charlotte drops to number 8. Succession's there at number 9, and La Reina del Sur, which is a telenovela produced by Telemundo, enters the chart at number 10. And looking at watch time for available episode from May 22nd through the 28th, Fubar tops the list at 4.26 million hours watched per episode, followed by Queen Charlotte at number 2 with 1.59 million. Citadel is at number 3. Man, Citadel did not have a huge rollout on Amazon. They put so much money into that show, but the ratings are not great. 758,000 hours watched per episode. XO Kitty is at number 4. Cocomelon is at number 5. Ted Lasso is at number 6. Barbecue Showdown comes in at number 7 with just over 271,000 hours watched per episode. Succession is at number 8, Firefly Lane is at number 9, and The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel rounds out the top 10 as it rounds out its run on Amazon Prime Video. Finally, let's look at some of the most watched lists when it comes to Nielsen. First of all, the most watched streaming movies of 2023 through May 28th. The top 4 remain the same. A Man Called Otto moves into the top 5, and Mother debuts on the list at number 6. Encanto, Murder Mystery 2, Your Place or Mine, and Luther the Fallen Son all drop down 1 spot, and We Have a Ghost drops off the list entirely. Black Panther Wakanda Forever remains on top of the chart for 2023 so far. Looking at the most watched library streaming series for 2023, these are series that do not premiere on streaming, but instead stream their episodes on various platforms. Basically, everything remains the same in the top 10 except for Shameless. Shameless has now replaced Criminal Minds as the 10th most watched library streaming series of the year. NCIS is still number 1, both as the most watched library streaming series and the most watched streaming series overall this year. Looking at the most watched original streaming series this year, most of this chart remains the same except that Ted Lasso is now the 9th most watched streaming series of 2023. Love is Blind gets bumped down to number 10. Cocomelon remains the most watched original series of 2023 and the 2nd most watched series overall. And then just one small change to note on the all-time chart when it comes to the most watched streaming series overall since 2020. Again, NCIS remains the most watched series across all platforms since Nielsen started reporting these numbers with 1.5 billion hours watched. Shameless, though, is also on the move on this chart. It is now the 9th most watched library series since 2020 with 299.5 million hours watched. That puts Friends down at number 10 with 298.5 million hours watched. And that does it for Streaming Charts with Dan. There's been a lot to cover this week, so thanks for sticking around. Just a few things that are coming up in the next week and a half or so. We don't quite know when the next episode will be, but some things to look out for on different streaming platforms. This Tuesday, June 27th, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, which is one of the most critically acclaimed films of the year, will be available for rental on various platforms. On Wednesday, June 28th, Hijack, starring Idris Elba in an airplane hijack thriller, debuts on Apple TV+. Also on Wednesday, June 28th, is the debut of the film Run Rabbit Run on Netflix. This is an Australian horror film that played Sundance. I was able to watch it virtually. It stars Succession's Sarah Snook. Say that 5 times fast. I think it's probably going to be a polarizing film, but I found it to be creepy, a slow burn, in the vein of Hereditary, though I certainly didn't like it as much as I love Hereditary. On Thursday, June 29th, Warrior Season 3 debuts on Max. It's been a long wait for Warrior fans. Season 2 aired back in 2020. Also on Thursday, June 29th, The Witcher Season 3 debuts starring Henry Cavill in his last turn before handing the reins over to Liam Hemsworth. On Friday, June 30th, is the premiere of Is It Cake? Season 2, a show I refuse to believe wasn't brought over from a reality where RoboCop exists. Also on Friday, June 30th on Netflix is the animated film Nimona, which seems to have gotten some early buzz. Who knows? Movies like The Sea Beast were able to ride this kind of buzz to Oscar nominations in recent history. And then also on Friday, June 30th, Jack Ryan Season 4 premieres on Amazon Prime. Thank you so much for spending a chunk of your day here with me as we went over all these streaming stories. Stay tuned right here on the channel. I will be doing streaming charts, box office charts, reviews, you name it. I just love covering this stuff, and I appreciate that you like listening to me talk about it. I'll be back very soon with more movie news, box office reviews, and more. Until then, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.